everyone. My name is Carrie Greer. I'm a senior solutions architect at Forum One, and I'm here to talk to you today about product roadmaps and how that can apply to Drupal projects. So, this topic is really important because the product road mapping and product planning and strategy can play a really important role on a long-term Drupal project, both from initiation to end. The session that I'm going to be presenting at DrupalCon Atlanta is called Mapping Success, Building Effective Product Roadmaps for Drupal Projects. For me, it's really important to present on this topic because I really want folks to take away understanding the central components of a product roadmap and how we've kind of customized those for the Drupal ecosystem. But I also want folks to take away practical tips for managing roadmap timelines, milestones, and deliverables from my experience working in this space for over 15 years. So I really think this can address that. I also think the Drupal community in general is kind of at a crossroads, right? It's a lot of new things are happening, and Drupal itself is a product, and now it has its own kind of separate product called the Drupal CMS. And so, what I'd like to do in my session is twofold: talk about how you can customize product roadmaps in order to meet the needs that folks have in the future, but how that might incorporate the Drupal CMS, then also how you can kind of align your product roadmap for Drupal's future and the specific technologies in place. So, for example, creating sustainable custom modules if that's required, choosing your modules in the Drupal community, and how that might affect your long-term sustainability of your CMS platform that you're building for your organization. For the problem or interest area for this particular audience, what I really want to focus on is that kind of Drupal-aware product roadmap. So I want to give a product manager's guide to Drupal releases and how that kind of fits within the release, your CMS project, but also kind of managing the balance between custom development versus core adoption, and how simplicity is kind of important in these cases, and how we've kind of learned the lessons, especially when we upgraded from Drupal 7 to 8. The next thing is dependencies on contributors modules and how to manage risk. And this was, again, something we saw when folks upgraded from Drupal 7 to 8, right? At the time, there was kind of a big divide in the Drupal community with like what type of layout engine that you're going to end up using. A lot of people chose panels for that because that's the technology we had at the time. Well, unfortunately, that didn't play very nicely with kind of Drupal 8's architecture and organization, and that led to a lot of pain points when people were upgrading. So I think choosing sustainable modules, but also choosing ones that align with Drupal core CMS and Drupal CMS's trajectory is important, but also choosing ones that aren't abandoned or unsupported. So from a product roadmap standpoint, when we're creating that long-term strategy, we're wanting to make sure that all of those kind of details are kept in mind. Next thing is prioritization. So that's super important as well. So from a feature planning long-term standpoint, what do we know that's like behind the community? So rather than trying to fix a problem with some custom development, is there something that the community is working on now? Is there something that you can do as a developer to potentially work on that the customers are going to invest in, and then we can contribute that back to the community? All of these trade-offs are super important when we're planning a roadmap. And then I'm going to kind of walk through a case study in my presentation as well. The next piece is going to be about tools and techniques for managing Drupal integrated roadmaps, for just some tips and tricks. So how do we combine the roadmap with what's going on with the Drupal CMS, and what technologies do we use? Do we use Jira? Do we use AHA? Do we use Trello? Do we use Product Board? How do we monitor module status and security updates in an automated way so you're not having to manually check? Engaging with the Drupal community as a roadmap strategy as well. So, how can we influence Drupal's development via what we know, but also the business case for contributing back? And then also mitigating risks when relying on open source is an important factor. I think for this particular audience, that's not is a big deal, but when you're talking to your customer, um, that's an important piece, right? So if you relied on a particular development workflow or module, people have been bitten in the past when they've chosen open source. So those are just some of the things that we watch for. Um, the important points or the key takeaways that I want folks to really understand is making sure that when you are developing a roadmap for your web CMS, your product roadmap, that it needs to be Drupal aware. It can't be generic. So whoever you're hiring really needs to understand Drupal and the open source community in order to do a proper job. And secondly, why tracking what's going on in the Drupal community, what's going on with the Drupal CMS itself is crucial for long-term success and how that's important to planning for the future. And then lastly, really it's do you have an effective means to manage your project in the future? So that's why product roadmaps are super important, right? Oftentimes vendors or customers will kind of build the site, but then not think long term. And it's important kind of at the start to kind of have a North Star that you're reaching towards in that product roadmap or your product vision, and then kind of work towards meeting that over the span of a couple of years. So that is what I'm going to be talking about in my building effective roadmaps for Drupal projects session at DrupalCon in Atlanta in 2 weeks. And thank you for your time.